Hey y'all, today I'm reviewing Mario Kart World for the Nintendo Switch 2.
Talk about the price!
In a minute!
It's pretty wild that a game series as universally beloved as Mario Kart has had this much controversy surrounding it before its latest installment's release. First you had the anger about the dramatically increased pricing, which basically just drowned out all the conversations about the game itself at first. But then amongst people who were willing to discuss the game, there was a lot of apprehension and annoyance around how much World had shaken up the fundamentals of the series, as this is the first entry where the main focus isn't on doing multi-lap races around an enclosed track, but instead on racing across and exploring a giant interconnected world. And this innovation, which may have been received with more enthusiasm if the game had been released in less costly circumstances, has instead been placed under intense scrutiny by many of the series' fans. And hey, if everyone else is talking about it, I may as well give my 2 cents too! Especially as 2 cents is literally all the money I have left after buying this thing. Or 2 pence, because I'm British. But anyway, here's my review of Mario Kart World, and you best buckle up, because I'm about to take you on a wild ride that'll rock your world. Or you can just listen to this while you're cleaning or eating or whatever, it'll be chill. So I thought that talking about the Grand Prix mode first would be the most natural place to start, since, you know, that's always been the main mode of Mario Kart. But because the Grand Prix mode is so starkly different to what it's been in the past, I think in order to contextualise my feelings about it, I have to talk about Knockout Tour first. Knockout Tour is a mode new to World, in which 24 players have to race from one side of the world map to the other, across 6 checkpoints. At each checkpoint, the players in the last 4 positions get eliminated, until there's only 4 players left in the final lap. And Knockout Tour is awesome. It comes with this epic, grandiose feeling of travelling across this wide world, weaving through all these different locations. And it's all paired with a constant intensity, which comes with the fear of being knocked out. If you make it all the way to the end, you really do feel like you've been through a gauntlet. I also like that Knockout being more endurance based, gives it a different strategy to regular races, as you don't necessarily need to aim for first the whole time, you just have to be part of the pack. I know getting Mario Karted has always been a thing, but getting blue shelled right before a knockout checkpoint is a whole new kind of pain. I think Knockout is also just the most fun online mode. It always kind of bothered me that in public lobbies you can't do full Grand Prix, only individual races. But doing Knockout online is basically the equivalent of doing a Grand Prix, as it lasts roughly as long, and each section of a rally is like its own race. I also just prefer the knockout system over the point system that Grand Prix uses. Like in regular Grand Prix mode, if you lose the first race really badly, it's basically already over for you. Even if you do well in the other races, the competitor who does well in all of them will still beat you. Those points you lost in that one race were too much of a detriment. But with Knockout Tour, no matter how badly you're doing in the moment, there's almost always this possibility that you can make a comeback. Because it's just one long race, and there's no points. So if you're in, you're in. And if you do lose, you're just knocked out completely, so you can just quickly start again. There's only a couple of things that hold Knockout Tour back for me. For one thing, for some reason this is the only online mode where you're not given any choice about what map you want to play next. I think this is to make sure Knockout Tour starts as quickly as possible to stop anyone from leaving. This isn't the biggest deal since there's only 8 tracks anyway, but it's annoying when the game just picks the same one twice in a row. A bigger sticking point for Knockout Tour is probably the track design itself, as almost the whole thing is made up of MK World's trademark straight roads. Truly being straight has never felt more oppressive. Now, the whole rally being linear isn't an inherently bad idea. In fact, we've seen them do this in past games with tracks like Big Blue and Mount Wario Don't Mind If I Do, and those made for some of the most epic and adventurous tracks ever. But the big difference with these segmented tracks is that they take you through a singular setting that has a cohesive theme, with its own distinct gimmicks and music track. This all makes each segment of the track naturally flow into the next one. Now, to the Knockout Rally's credit, they are also sometimes able to have their sections flow into each other seamlessly, which is even more impressive considering it has the job of connecting together a bunch of different tracks. However, there are also plenty of instances where the sudden terrain shift seems a bit more jarring, and it feels like the rally isn't naturally building upon what came before it. For example, in Ice Rally, there's a part where you have to swerve through these bendy, icy roads high up in the mountains. It makes for a super intense sequence, as the whole time you're aware that one bad turn could send you careening off into the abyss, and fighting your way to the peak feels like the cumulation of a treacherous journey. But this part actually makes up the first couple of sections of Ice Valley. After you reach the checkpoint at the top of the cliff, you later gently glide down to a wide open road with very little danger, which seems a little anticlimactic after what you just went through. But, you know, at least this icy track helps the Ice Valley live up to its name. But actually it doesn't, because I lied to you. This whole ice section is a part of Spiny Rally. Ice Rally is a completely separate rally that also starts in the ice part of the map. This leads me to my other issue with knockout rallies, is that because they're going through so much of the map, some of them do overlap with each other. Like there's 3 separate rallies that route you through Moo Moo Meadows. It made me feel like I was suffering from a serious case of deja moo. So that contributes to making the different rallies feel like they blur together slightly. However, I'm not that bothered by these problems because I think they're just inherent to this cross-country format. If you're having multiple rallies that span across all these different terrains, I think it's only natural that some will overlap, or sometimes a track will have to softly set its difficulty. And even if the track design is a little weak, the knockout format is so strong that it carries the entire experience. Like, I'm not scrutinising the layout that much when I'm just focused on my placing, like, oh my god, I gotta stay in! But what would happen if you took away the knockout format, and instead the main draw was just racing on these open roads? Grand Prix mode! So, in case you're someone who just emerged from Plato's Cave for the first time, and watching this YouTube video is your first experience of your new reality, here's a recap of how Grand Prix mode used to work in Mario Kart. You played 4 separate courses in a row, each of which were roughly the same difficulty, and each usually consisted of 3 laps. Have you got all that? Good, because for World, we're throwing it all out. Okay, that's a bit dramatic, we're just throwing like half of it out. The Grand Prix mode in World feels like a mixture of this old formula and the Knockout Tour rally structure, with it having the typical courses, but now having long roads that connect them all together. The common fan term for these connecting routes is intermissions, although intermissions are actually supposed to refer to a completely different feature in the game. But I'm still going to call the connecting routes intermissions because that's what everyone else is calling them, and that's what I already wrote in the script, and I don't want to have to edit all of that. But anyway, these intermissions are where the floors of these straight roads start to lay themselves out in front of you in a long, wide, flat row. I'd go into more details about the problems of these individual layouts myself, but because I'm lazy, I'll just play a supercut of every time Odyssey Central referred to these basic open roads in his cup ranking.
Moving to our final track involves driving through a lot of Crown City 1 from the Mushroom Cup and then some very open road. The rest of the map is just boring, extremely open road, but the track itself is the worst victim of the plain open road. The area is really open. Now I will say once you reach the water, the track does fall off a little bit since it's pretty open and plain without much to do. Unfortunately, just like Peach Beach, this also ends with a pretty open and plain water section. Sadly, we do still have a bit more blandness to go, with the next intermission starting out with some very open road, which as always makes it way too easy to avoid all the cars. Moving out toward the intermission, we honestly have a pretty plain one as it starts out on some open dirt with barely any obstacles. Unfortunately, the intermission section after this is extremely weak, being a super open road with tons of space to avoid any cars. I'm really not doing a good job selling this as the best cup, huh?
I can't help but compare these intermissions to their Knockout Rally counterparts, especially since the same routing is sometimes reused in them, and I noticed that a lot of the stuff I like most about the Knockout Rallies doesn't apply to the intermissions. The grand cross-country feeling is hampered by these being broken up into 4 races that are interspersed between a lap around a closed circuit. I don't really feel as invested in what's happening when there's no threat of elimination, which means I'm more aware that I'm just driving through a wide road. The added length of these intermissions is just annoying when combined with the points-based system, because now when I do badly in a race I'm just like, oh my god, if I lose I'm gonna have to go through this whole long ass cup again. But if I just view these intermissions as weaker versions of their Knockout Rally counterparts, does that mean there's any merit to including them in Grand Prix? And honestly, yeah, I think there is. Like, let's say you're into the cross-country race format that Knockout Tour offers, but you just don't like the elimination aspect. You want everyone to play together the whole time. Well, you have Grand Prix, offering you basically that experience. It's like how Smash Bros has both stock and time. Also, to be fair, there are some things I think Grand Prix does better than Knockout Tour. Earlier, I critiqued Knockout Tour because I didn't feel that each section of a rally always built upon the previous one. While in Grand Prix mode, there's a more concerted effort to give the cup some kind of cohesive theme that unites all its courses. Like how the Star Cup features the 3 ice courses, each with a chill atmosphere, and then ends on a haunted shipwreck with a chilling atmosphere. Or how the Flower Cup starts in the desert, which transitions nicely into the mud-filled stadium, and then the rowdy stadium naturally escalates into the intense war zone of Airship Fortress. These themes mean that Grand Prix is able to craft a kind of narrative, where the intermissions help to build up hype for the next course. Also, the Lighting Cup starting in the serene and welcoming Moo Moo Meadows and ending in the fiery inferno of Bowser's Castle is peak comedy. On the subject of courses, they're what make up the other half of Grand Prix mode. Well, I say half, but the ratio feels a little more lopsided than that. So typically the first race in the cup is always the enclosed lap type track, whilst the following 3 races have their first 2 laps span across the intermissions, with only the last lap of each taking place entirely within the respective track, although this will vary depending on the size and layout of the track. So usually you're spending 6 laps in a course, and 6 laps driving through intermissions, which on paper is a 50-50 split. but it doesn't really feel that way when half of the course laps occur in the first race, which means from the second race onwards you're spending a majority of your time driving through intermissions. This also just means it's hard for the layouts of the later courses to really stick out, as when you only get a single lap on them you're only there for a minute or so. The first course in a cup is also usually the simplest one, which makes sense, you'd expect the cups to rise in difficulty as you go through it, but it's a bit irritating when the first track is also the only one you get to spend the entire race on. In most cases there's 3 other tracks in the cup that are just better, but you don't get to spend as much time on them because of this design. Like, oh my god, I cannot believe how ridiculously boring that Cooper Beach track is. Like, it is literally just a circle. And it's not even a fun circle like Baby Park, it's a sucky circle. You know, it's kind of funny that the biggest problem most people seem to have are the straight roads, but the thing I'm most bothered by is the circle. Oh well, the DJ Cooper Dance remix is awesome, I guess. Seriously should have just made this course GBA Cheap Cheap Island though. Like really, how is it fair that SNES gets 2 retro slots along with a bunch of tribute courses, while GBA gets nothing? Getting back on track, of the tracks that appear later in the cut, the ones that fare the best are those aforementioned segmented tracks. Since you're only intended to go through the whole thing once anyway, it means you get the full experience of them, irregardless. And since the Mario Circuit mashup is one of these segmented tracks, it weirdly makes it one of the tracks that stands out the most. Even if Mario Circuit 3 is like that one guy you invited to a party who's still at your house at 3 AM, hours after everyone else has left and now he's just sitting in your kitchen rolling a blunt and ranting about how pop music died in the 90s. God, these SNES tracks are really getting to me. So even though Grand Prix mode has its merits, my biggest issue with it is that you don't get to fully experience the individual tracks. But the thing is, Grand Prix is just one of the ways you can race in this game. You might not know it, but there's a whole other mode where you can race people, confoundingly called Versus Race. Like in every Mario Kart, Versus Race is where you go if you want to make your own custom cup. In World, this has the added benefit that you can make unique intermissions, creating connective routes between tracks that aren't available in Grand Prix. This is cool because it means every track now has multiple different iterations of it, which gives them all so much more replay value if you want to try every possible track combination there is. Honestly, I think any track discussion that ignores all the different intermissions entirely isn't doing them justice, because it means you're only looking at one of the many different ways you can play it. So that's cool and all, but pointing out how many different intermissions there are isn't really doing anything for the guy who hates intermissions. What if you just want to play the traditional 3 laps around a course way? Well, if you want to play without intermissions, simply go into Versus Race and change the rules to open. And then when you select the course you want to play, it will give you a list of intermissions to choose from. At which point, you just ignore the entire list the game just gave you and select the same course again. So I find this setup a little confusing. Firstly, when I saw the rules were connected or open, I assumed that the open mode must refer to playing the courses disconnected from each other. So it feels very counterintuitive that the first thing you see when you select the open mode is the option to connect the courses together. And it's also not clear that you have to select the same course twice in order to play it by itself. Like, when I select it and the first thing it shows me is a list of other courses, I just assume I have to select a different course. And this isn't just a me problem, I saw other people online also confused by this. But the important thing to note here is that because of the open mode, traditional lap-only Grand Prix are in the game, and their presence basically alleviates all of the apprehensions I had about the new Grand Prix mode. When I was weighing up the pros and cons of the new intermission system, I was questioning if it was a worthy replacement of traditional Grand Prix. But it's not really a replacement when the old way to play is still there. And for all the courses I felt were too eclipsed by intermissions in Grand Prix mode, I can just play however I want in this mode instead. And when you put it that way, I like that we have both the classic way and the intermission way to race. It adds more variety to the game. It just would have been preferable if this mode wasn't hidden behind a bunch of convoluted options. And I wish they had done more to clearly separate it from the intermission mode, both for local and online play. Okay, I guess I have to talk about online now. So basically a lot of people are annoyed about having to race with the intermissions in online mode. There was a way to bypass this by selecting random, which would always result in the game picking an enclosed lap type course. But then Nintendo patched this, so now intermissions appear when you select random as well. Now, I've heard some misconceptions about how online works, so I just want to clear it up here. A lot of people seem to think that selecting random was the only way to get an enclosed lap type course. But the game will sometimes give you the option to select these. When you select a course online, World will present you with 3 choices to pick from. Of the 3 choices it presents you, if it has a line next to it, that means you're playing a connected intermission course. But if it doesn't have a line, you'll play the regular enclosed lap version of the course. Also, even though they've changed random to include intermissions, it still can select lap only courses as well. So again, the traditional way to play is still in the game. Nintendo just seems to be going out of their way to hide it as much as possible. They did add another update that increased the frequency in which lap type courses appear, but there's still no option online to just choose to only play them. And that's weird, right? That traditional free lap courses, which were previously the main way to play Mario Kart, now seem to be this hidden away extra mode. Almost like it's just there as a formality, only included out of obligation. Speaking of formalities only included out of obligation, Battle Mode!
Oh my god, I didn't see you there. You make absolutely no impression at all.
To be honest, I've never cared that much about Battle Mode, and judging by how it's represented here, I don't think the developers do either. Only 2 types of Battle Mode return. A lot of the battle maps just feel way too big, which I guess is to accommodate for the extra players, but you're not always going to be playing with a full lobby online anyway. And most of the maps themselves are just repurposed race courses, despite there definitely being enough room in this overworld to fit 8 unique ones. This also means that not only is Moonway Meadows here as a retro race course, but it's technically a retro battle map too? God, Moonway Meadows is like that one girl at a party who was supposed to be taking Mario Circuit free home, but she had one too many and now she's hunched over the toilet throwing up. It's okay, Sunday Sprint is in there holding her hair back. Sorry, I got distracted from talking about battle mode, but can you blame me when there's nothing to talk about? Oh well, at least Balloon Battle is elimination based and all the new items add more ways to duke it out. It's just weird that in a game that feels dedicated to reimagining what Mario Kart can be, they just thought of nothing new for battle mode. But why don't we switch lanes and jump to something that did receive a lot of attention? The new parkour mechanics. Tricks have been an integral part of the Mario Kart series for a while now, and it's not hard to see why. They've always felt super satisfying to perform. Getting to see your racer do a cute little animation whenever you're up in the air, and then getting rewarded with a little speed boost when you hit the ground. But it's always been a relatively straightforward mechanic, just something to keep your hands busy while you're flying through the air, which is honestly even more applicable to this game now that you can do multiple of them in a row. But World also added some much needed extra depth to the tricks by revamping them into a whole parkour system, since now you can charge up jumps anytime, allowing you to trick onto grind rails and walls. This adds a whole new level of strategy to the game, as you have to pay extra attention to the track around you, since almost any surface could be an alternate route to take, with a lot of them testing your reaction time as you try to make all these jumps. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that, other than perhaps drifting itself, this is the most skill-based mechanic introduced into a Mario Kart, at least of the ones that felt intentionally implemented. The charge jump is tied to the same button as regular drifting, which is something you can't jump out of. I think this is fine in regular racing, but it is a little irritating in the overworld when you're trying to build up a jump, but then you accidentally turn slightly and you're just doing a regular drift instead, and it's like, oh okay, bring it back now y'all. But speaking of, oh my god, the new rewind feature is such a godsend in free roam. There are so many moments where the game asks you to perform pretty tricky tech, and failing can cause you to fall really far away, and like, if you had to manually drive back to where you were every time you failed, I would probably not even bother trying. But luckily, anytime you fail, you can just say, whoop, not today, and hit that rewind button. No stress, no time wasting, and you even get your item refunded. And in regular races, you can use rewind to straight up dodge a blue shell. Sadly, you can't abuse this online. I'm just so glad they added mechanics that were both fun and practical, and didn't just try and force in mouse controls and call it a day. Although I kinda wish they did. Mouse-controlled karts sound funny. But in order to make room for all these new mechanics, some old ones had to be removed, with one of the most notable being the anti-grav. 8's anti-gravity made for a cool evolution for the track design, adding a lot of spectacle as you raced up waterfalls, or upside down on the ceiling above other racers. It is a bit of a sad omission from World, but it would have been difficult to implement the anti-grav without it clashing against the open world or the new parkour mechanics. Also, even though the feature is removed, it feels like it's still here in spirit. Like, some of the world tracks just are as steep as the anti-grav ones were, and wall driving is still here. It's just been revamped into something that actually takes effort to pull off, instead of just driving up a ramp to get on a wall that's just slower than driving normally. Now, if we want to talk about a feature that was replaced entirely, Mario Kart is over water, because you drive over water instead of under it. Now, driving underwater was always cool aesthetically, as you got to see cool aquatic creatures and hear the dynamically changing music. Damn, that saxophone. I just never cared for it that much mechanically. Most of the time you're just driving slower and floatier, which isn't exactly what I came to the race for. In comparison, I think World's water racing is more dynamic and versatile. Some of it is just expanding on stuff that the series has done before, like how sometimes the force of the current will propel you forwards, while other times you'll be fighting against it. But the big standout of the water sections is how they utilise waves, straight out of the Wave Race 64 game. With those big stormy waves you can bounce across, or how an explosion in the water will cause a mini tidal wave that will force you backwards. These stunning water effects are really the moments that make me appreciate the extra graphical power of the Switch 2 more than anything. I'd say the one part of the water driving that sucks is when you have to drive through long stretches of calm water where not much is happening, but that's not that different to being on a long stretch of road. I'll also give the underwater driving some credit in that it did feel more original to Mario Kart, whereas the whole transforming into a boat thing has definitely been done before. Speaking of, can we talk about how much Mario has been screwing with Sonic recently? First, Wonder gets released the day after Superstars, and then Mario Kart just snipes the world subtitle out from under Sonic Racing Crossworlds. And this game had the audacity to put rail grinding and wall running in it. I mean, I guess the statement Sega does what Nintendo don't isn't true if you just steal all their ideas. Oh well, I think Crossworlds may have ended up having the last laugh in the end. Anyway, as for a feature I am unambiguously happy about getting removed, you no longer have to select individual vehicle parts before each race, as they're all back to being pre-built, just as God intended. This was another feature where I could see the aesthetic appeal of it, as getting to combine whatever parts you want could give you more of an investment in your own kart, like it's your own creation. But man, it was just so irritating having to wait for people to scroll back and forth between 3 separate lists of parts in order to fine-tune their stats, which, let's be honest, do not matter if you're just playing a casual race anyway. And even if you are playing a competitive race where stats actually matter, you're just going to go for whatever the current meta build is anyway, making all the other combinations feel extra pointless. So, getting rid of the vehicle parts is one area where World just made the selection process more intuitive to navigate. Too bad they couldn't apply that to the character select screen. More on that later. But damn! That's 2 features from 7 I've given the Rip Bozo treatment to. Oh well, gliding is still here and that's fun. Congrats 7, you introduced one worthwhile mechanic. As for some other changes from 8, Lakitu is less of a broski, as falling out of bounds takes away your items again. I guess because there are less pits of death on these wide tracks, they thought it less likely that people would fall off, thus meaning they could make the punishment harsher. But may I remind you that because of the open nature, it's also easier to not know where you're going and accidentally drive off the track. Not that I'm super pressed about it or anything, but by far the most disappointing missing feature is the absence of 200cc. That extra speed really would have gone the extra mile on these big open roads. But whilst a lot of past mechanics got ousted, one area where they didn't hesitate to bring things back were the items. Items have always been an essential part of Mario Kart's identity, so much so that they had to force that blue shell reference into the Mario movie. Despite this, I feel like after Double Dash, they became pretty stingy when it came to adding new ones. There's usually an average of 3 new items per entry, which wouldn't be so bad if they actually kept them all in the following games, but no, usually they'll get a trial run in a single entry, and if things don't work out, POW! There's the door, don't let it whack your tail on the way out. But with World? Okay, there was still a couple of items that got cut. The Piranha Plant is a driver now, and every time one gets close I instinctively swerve away because there are war flashbacks of getting chomped. Also, that Crazy 8 item is gone, although it's not really much of a loss since it was literally just a combination of 8 other items that are still in the game. Definitely gets the award for most unoriginal item ever, especially since it wasn't even an 8 invention, it was just a revamp of the Lucky 7 from 7. Honestly, the fact that they thought this gimmicky item was worth naming the game after just shows how little 7 had going for it. I'll cut 8 some slack since it at least had the anti-grav to justify its title. Speaking of titles, in the Ask the Developer interview for World, they claimed the reason they didn't call it Mario Kart 9 was because the game was more than just adding courses. But personally, I think the reason they had to change the title was because if they called it 9, they would have had to keep the Crazy 8 around and add an additional item to make it the Cloud 9 or something. But other than those 2 items that probably deserve to be called anyway, World not only brought back a bunch of old favourites, but even leased new life into some of the more underwhelming ones. Like, the Golden Mushroom always just seemed like a worse version of the Triple Mushroom, since it's on a timer and having multiple speed boosts in a row could easily send you hurtling through space. But in World, smashing that boost button is perfect for cutting across all those wide patches of off-road. Also in World, they've changed it so you no longer have to hold on to the item button if you want to keep the item behind you, which is a good change, but it did take some getting used to. I kept instinctively pressing the button in order to hold the item behind me, only to accidentally fire it instead. Bye son, have a good day at school! But of course, I can't forget about all the fun new items that World added, like the cool new Ice Flower, oh that's from Tor, or getting to kill my friends with hammers, oh that's also from Tor, or getting to smack that coin block, oh that's actually not from Tor, but it's very similar to an item that was. Man, are there any actual new items that World added? Oh, Kamek's an item now? I wonder what he does. What is he doing? 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 What is he? You know, I think it's time I moved on to the characters. Before World, 8 Deluxe's final roster was hands down the best the series ever had. Pretending Tour doesn't exist. But it also took that game 9 years worth of DLC, Switch re-releases, and booster course passes for it to get that way. Before that, the only accolade that 8's roster held was having the lamest set of newcomers ever. Those being the Flopperlings, Stink Mold Peach, and another baby, but not just any baby, a retcon baby. Those guys all suck so much that none of them even came back for World. Well, except Baby Rosalina, who returned with a vengeance. I wonder why they didn't add Baby Pauline. Oh, that's why. But not only did World bring back most of the veterans you actually give a crap about, including Waluigi, which might not seem like much, but that's more than 7 was capable of. But they also added an onslaught of completely jaw-dropping additions, as they made a bunch of characters that were previously just obstacles into their own playable drivers. These new racers are referred to as NPC drivers, continuing Nintendo's long-standing tradition of being terrible at naming things. Who does and doesn't qualify as an NPC driver is a little weird. Like, Drybones is an NPC driver, but Shy Guy isn't, despite them both being veterans who were previously used as obstacles. That aside, I love the NPC drivers, as it means we get to play as so many funny little guys, such as Conkdor, Cataquack, Parabidabuddy, my ex. Disclaimer, that joke is a cell phone, I don't have an ex. No, but seriously, it's so funny how integral to this game's identity the cow is. The fact that one member of the team drawing a silly little doodle of a cow in a truck is what inspired them to add all these wacky races is so adorable. And then the cow just became the unofficial mascot of these guys, being the first new racer shown off in the reveal trailer, and also getting its own dedicated statue on its own dedicated track. Truly, she is an icon, she is a legend, and she is the movement. Also, I know some people were annoyed they brought back Moo Moo Meadows again, but come on. It's not like there's any other cow-themed courses they could have put in instead. With the sheer number of absolute freaks they added, it makes you wonder why they didn't go for an everyone is here type roster and bring everyone back. To be fair, there are some characters whose absence I understand. Like, I can see why it wasn't necessary to bring in the guest characters into a game that's about exploring the Mario world. Shout out to Rob's Recycled Corpse for getting in though. And I can understand not bringing in the Kongs, since they wanted to save revealing their new redesigns. But why is King Boo here without his lover, P.T. Piranha? Stop separating them! I guess the excuse is that we don't need P.T. anymore, since the regular Piranha Plant can drive now, after beating up Captain Falcon in Smash and stealing his license. But then what's the excuse for King Bob? Regular Bobs aren't playable. King Bob. Could have been the Bob representation this game was sorely lacking. But by far the character whose absence I am most flabbergasted by is Koopa Paratrooper. His addition in Double Dash was always extremely conditional, only being there because Koopa Trooper needed a partner. It was no surprise he never returned, and he was seemingly replaced by the far superior Drybones anyway. But now, in a game where characters as irrelevant as the mole that's not Monty and the ghost that's not Boo are playable, he could have slid right in. Plus he wouldn't even need to be his own character, just give Koopa an outfit where he has wings. Let's see, are there any other missing veterans worth mentioning? Oh yeah, Kamek! Boy, he's had quite the Mario Kart journey. Originally intended to appear in Mario Kart 64 before being cut, it wouldn't be until 25 years later when he was finally made playable in a Mario Kart game, and 27 years before he was made playable in a Mario Kart game that was actually good. And he got to bask in the joys of being playable for about 2 years, before World came out and demoted him to an item. And Kamek really said, "Ew! I'm not playable anymore. Then good luck trying to play as anyone else ever again." See, Kamek's ability is that he summons enemies and turns people into NPC drivers, which is how you unlock them. On one hand, it's a pretty cute tie-in to how his magic works in the platformer games. On the other hand, it's one of the most mind-numbingly frustrating unlock methods in gaming history. The novelty of it wears off pretty quickly when you realise it's a random chance if Kamek even appears. The frequency he appears is pretty low, and if he does appear, it's an even slimmer chance that he actually turns you into a character that you need to unlock. To make this even more situational, you have to very specifically be in front of the person who got Kamek in order to be transformed. Getting the item yourself is no use, and you won't be affected if you're behind the person who uses it. I guess it works like this because the game thinks that transforming the players who are already lagging behind is unnecessarily cruel. That's why the lightning was changed to only affect the people in front of you now. But the negative effect of getting transformed is so negligible that it honestly ends up feeling more like a reward if you get a new character unlocked out of it. Seriously, there was one time I missed out on unlocking Peeper because I happened to be behind when it was summoned, and I was just like, great. Not only am I losing the race, but I also missed on my chance to unlock a character. Way to rub salt in the wound. There was actually a day 1 update to the game that made a handful of the unlockable characters default, which makes it seem like they instantly realised how annoying the Kamek mechanic actually was. This whole Kamek item really does feel like a glorified gacha mechanic. And when you put it that way, I guess it's better than an actual gacha that's asking you to make multiple microtransactions. It's just too bad the game already cost me my soul! To be honest, my biggest annoyance with the Kamek item is that since you could only get it in races, it just meant there was no way to unlock the characters while playing in free roam. After I had finished playing all the Grand Prix, I really just wanted to chill and explore the map, but I felt like I couldn't because there were still so many NPCs I needed to unlock. Well, luckily the developers heard my prayers and answered them 3 months after the game came out. Good job I took so long making this video so I could add an addendum here. Yes, with the 1.3 update, a second method was added to unlock the NPCs. Now if you abduct a character with a UFO, you'll transform into them once your time in the UFO is up, thereby unlocking them. And I love the UFO method for so many reasons. It incentivizes exploration as you search for the UFO spawns, it's practical because now it means you can actively choose which character you want to unlock, and in general, it's just a quirky and creative way to unlock characters. All of that stuff easily makes it the superior unlock method. Sorry people who spent hours trying to get the Kamek exploit to work. Unfortunately, there's just one small hiccup holding the UFO back. It can't suck up the Rocky Wrench enemies, which is the last character I needed to unlock. Boy, that really threw a wrench in my plans. Made this into a real rocky situation. Sunglasses. Despite this, there is still a way to get Rocky with the UFO. While it won't suck up enemy versions of the character, it will still suck up the Rockies who appear as drivers. This means the most effective way to unlock Rocky Wrench now is to play online in the overworld with a friend who already has Rocky, and then suck them up with the UFO. Sadly this isn't an option for me because I don't have friends. But even if you're not playing with friends, you can still find characters driving around in the overworld anyway, so if I found Rocky Wrench driving around near a UFO, I could get him, but that involves having to continually reload the map until he spawns in the right location, and then we're just back to the random chance problem the Kamek item had. So it's disappointing that the UFO came close to being the perfect idea, only for it to fall at the final hurdle. That seems like a trend with this game. But since I'm already complaining about character related stuff, what is going on with the character select screen? Why is it multiple pages long? Why aren't the alternate costumes just stacked with their character? Why does the default order just haphazardly place random unrelated costumes between actual characters? They already had the basis for a functional menu. Just use the format 8 went for. There would have been enough slots to place everyone on the screen at once if you just stacked the costume characters. Other than the fact that they absolutely destroy the select screen, I do like the alternate costumes. They're cute, cool, funny, and even come with their own animations. Also, there are some deep cut references here. Holy shit, is that Boshi? The disparity of how many costumes each character gets is kinda weird though, and since not every item of food unlocks a new costume for each character, it has been annoying having to figure out which kind of food you need to get the next costume, but I guess that encourages exploration at least. Also, I love that by playing a single knockout race you can unlock like half a character's costumes. So while I'm grinding out Elo, I can also grind out costumes while grinding on Rails, while grinding on Road, Ruffy and Wario. Okay, that's enough. Speaking of unlockables, each Grand Prix Cup has a respective character it unlocks, and completing the first 7 will unlock the Special Cup. But you don't actually have to win to unlock these things, you just have to finish the cup. These are literally participation awards. The funniest part is this little movie will play when you unlock the Special Cup, and it will show the trophies of each of the 7 cups, even if you didn't win them all. When I first watched this I was like, whose trophies are those? Because they ain't mine. You'll definitely want to unlock the Special Cup though, so you can experience the majestic Odyssey that is Rainbow Road. Oh my god, they made it blue. Don't show Silent Cock. But by far, the coolest and most elusive unlockable Easter egg this game has to offer is, of course, all of the stickers! So stickers are rewarded for you whenever you make some kind of achievement, and damn, there are a lot of them. Complete a mission, get a sticker. Drive a bajillion kilometers, get a sticker. Hit a police officer, get a sticker. And what do you do with your hordes and hordes of stickers? Well, you can place them on your cart. And how many can you have in your cart at a time?
One!
So once you find the one you like, you can just chuck the rest in the landfill, I guess. I mean, it's possible you might want to change stickers once in a while, but I wouldn't recommend it because this menu is a nightmare to navigate. So if you do change your sticker, you might not be able to find it again. Seriously, there's not even an option to save stickers as favourites. Maybe World was just dead set on having bad select screens. I don't want to stick it to the stickers too badly, because they are cute, and there's an impressive amount of them, but I think I'd appreciate them more if you could place multiple stickers on your cart at a time. I want to just absolutely smother them with that crap. Also, I love how vague the descriptions on how you achieve these stickers are. Like, I would love to tell you which Peach medallion gave me this family computer robot sticker, but hell if I remember. But, on the subject of medallions, it's time we explored the biggest innovation of Mario Kart World, which is the world of Mario Kart World. The overworld functions much like a sandbox platformer, being filled with 3 types of collectibles: P-switches, question mark panels, and the aforementioned Peach medallions. P-switches trigger missions, which the series hasn't seen since DS. It was always weird that they never came back in any of the follow-up entries. I guess Wii and 8 didn't need them since home console releases can fall back on couch multiplayer. But what the hell was 7's excuse? It's like that game was determined to be as unmemorable as possible. There's a nice range of missions on offer here, some cute quirky ones, some races around unique courses, and some that require you to really master the parkour mechanics. Seriously, I'd be retrying those ones for days on end. In-game days, that is. But still pretty humbling watching the sunsets go by, because I'm failing to prove myself in a special test of skill. But they were definitely the type of missions I appreciated the most, since they were practical ways to practice the tech. The Peach medallions tend to require similar skill, as they're usually placed just out of reach, taunting you as you try to precisely pull off the exact combo of moves needed to reach them. Or you can just be like me and drive until you find an item box, spam them until you get a feather, and then drive all the way back so you can just yeet yourself up there. And then there's the question mark panels, which encourage you to explore every nook and cranny of a course, which in my case means just intently staring at the minimap the whole time until I spot one. The free roam map also offers a concise way to keep track of how many question mark panels there are and where to find them, with it showing you there are 5 per course, and the amount that are lit up are how many you found already. I really like the way this is handled because it gives you the general area of where the panels are, but it doesn't give away the exact location, so you still have to actively search for them. But when it came to the other 2 collectibles, the game took a different approach to how it let the player keep track of them, in that it didn't really do that. While you were told how many P-switch missions and Peach medallions you collected already, you weren't told how many there were in total, or given any hints about where they might be located. A lot of people were annoyed by this as it made things more cumbersome to search for, and thought the game should have added markers or something to tell you where to look. But personally, I didn't want this, as I just didn't think it was necessary. Like, for the panels, it was integral that the game showed you they could only be found in courses, so you didn't look for them in the middle of the ocean or something. But the other 2 collectibles are just spread out across the map, and I don't really think you need an indication about where to go if you're bound to stumble across a collectible wherever you go anyway, and I didn't want markers to tell me exactly where these things were, as I felt like that ruins the fun of finding them on your own. Of the people that were asking for markers, some of them just meant they wanted to mark off stuff they had found already, which was a more understandable ask, and what do you know, that was added into the game eventually, in the same 1.3 update. AKA the "please don't be mad at us anymore" update. And yeah, this is the perfect compromise. Now you can see the ones you have already, but it's up to you to search for new ones. And I think you should be left to your own devices when exploring the world, as it keeps the free in free roam. The emphasis should be on you deciding your own journey, going where you want to go at your own pace, and taking in the vibes while you do so. And boy, are there vibes reverberating all around this place. There are just so many cute little set pieces dotted about, like a toad camping or a family of penguins. Things that don't serve some kind of objective you have to fill, but are instead just there to add flavour and world building, and maybe some cute photo taking opportunities. That being said, I also appreciate how many objects that are seemingly just decorative actually are interactable, like how the tents and the boats can be used as ramps. And of course, no road trip would be complete without a decent mixtape to keep you company. Free roam is where you can best appreciate World's phenomenal soundtrack, which is brimming with bops and remixes from across the Mario series. I just wish they had something on screen to tell you what track was playing. Then I could look up the title on the Nintendo Music app, available on smart devices for paid Nintendo Online subscribers, and discover it's not there. But when you're roaming, it becomes so easy to just lose track of time as you vibe to the music, take in the adorable sights, and retry that grind railed wall jump for the millionth time. However, no matter how immersed I was in the moment, there was still something about free roam that left my stomach unsettled. And that was a feeling that emerged almost as soon as I first entered free roam. The first place I decided to visit was Moo Moo Meadows. You know, since it had been such a long time since I last saw it. And the very first P-Switch mission I did was the one that turns you into a UFO, which you then use to abduct a bunch of cows. And that mission was, of course, the most transcendent gaming experience I had had in my entire life. But as soon as I was done, I thought, that's it, right? That's probably the most exciting, unexpected surprise this game has to offer? And I still have the entire rest of this massive world left to explore. And for the most part, I think I was right. There were plenty of missions after that I thought were fun and creative, sure, but they were also completely in line with what I would expect the game to have. There wasn't another moment where I was like, whoa, they put this in the game? No way! And maybe this was just a result of the promotional material revealing everything, but while exploring free roam, there were a couple of other moments that reiterated this underwhelming feeling to me. Like the first time I found all 5 question mark panels in a course, and I thought, oh boy, I wonder what exciting thing happens when you find all of them, and the answer was nothing. Or when I first discovered you could chase around Nabbit, and got rewarded with a sticker for catching him, I thought, that was a cute little distraction. But then I found there were multiple Nabbits scattered around the world, and I thought, oh, there must be some reward for hunting down all the different Nabbits. And no, there isn't. Even though this world is filled with Nabbits to chase, you only have to chase them once, and then you can just ignore the dozens of others. Or how you can explore the open world with your friends if you want to, but there's nothing specific for you to do together other than have some cute photo ops. In fact, there's actually even less to do in the multiplayer as the P-switches have to be removed, making the world feel even more empty. So empty that they have to fill up the entire bottom half of the screen with that stupid message the entire time. But maybe that's why my stomach was unsettled. It felt empty, and was hungry for something more substantial. Because as much fun as these little tasks and distractions were to do in the moment, actually completing them felt a tinge anticlimactic, as it came with the realization that it wasn't building to anything. All you get out of it is a well done sticker. And you could argue that this is because free roam is meant to be more about the journey than the rewards, but it's a bit underwhelming when the extent of the journey is just pull off a couple of tricks to get this medal and then go about your day. Even the missions that do take place across larger portions of the map are constrained by a time limit. In terms of gameplay, all free roam has to offer are these short self-contained missions that are completely independent and disconnected from each other. Because as is, none of these smaller, time-constrained challenges that free roam offers really feel like they're fully utilising this giant map. And look, I don't need a big overarching story or anything, I just want some longer lasting objectives that actually ask you to travel across places and make you feel like you're going on an adventure. Is that any different from a story mode? Like maybe Kamek has put a curse on the different courses, and after you complete a certain number of missions in each, it summons a boss. Or maybe there's a postal service that asks you to make deliveries from one part of the map to the other, and you get graded on how well you handled the delivery, how long it takes you, if the package got damaged, etc. Or maybe you could just pick up passengers and race around trying to get them to their destination on time. When in doubt, just rip off Crazy Taxi. However, after thinking about it a bit more, I did realise that maybe free roam doesn't need to ask you to take longer journeys across the map, because you're already going to be doing that when you race in Grand Prix or Knockout Rally anyway. But without something like this, it means you get the gist of what free roam is pretty quickly. And while what it offers is fun, it's not something that offers much intrinsic motivation to keep coming back to it. it's not something where you need to see everything it has, when everything it has is something that can be seen through a handful of missions. And I think that's a shame, because free roam is the main selling point of Mario Kart World. Sure, this game still offers infinite hours of multiplayer fun, but every Mario Kart offers that. But in terms of unique single-player content, the open world and the missions are it. And if those aren't quite up to snuff, you can't help but question, is this game worth it? So, with all that being said, I think I can easily say, without a doubt, that Mario Kart World is my favourite game in the franchise. Yeah, I feel that free roam could have been more, but if I ignore what could have been, I still enjoy the experience for what it is, and it may not be perfect, but this is also the only Mario Kart that even offers anything like it. And the same goes for Knockout Tour. That's easily my favourite racing mode in Mario Kart, and this is the only entry that has it. And maybe that's weird, that those things are enough for me to definitively say that World is my favourite entry, that I'm prioritising what are effectively side modes over the core experience of doing traditional races. I mean, I even question the game for doing the same thing, for hiding away traditional free-lap races. But the thing is, I feel like the past few Mario Karts have offered a roughly equivalent experience when it comes to their racing modes. Sure, there have definitely been tweaks and additions between them, but these were slight enough that it doesn't make much of a difference to me. Like, no matter which of these entries you put in front of me, as long as it's a multiplayer race, it's gonna be a good time, right? And it's not like any of them offer much of a single player mode outside of just racing. And I know I've been shitting on 7 this whole time, but the truth is, I don't actually hate it or anything. It's a perfectly enjoyable Mario Kart game. But the thing is, it's just been completely supplanted by 8. There is so little reason to go back to it, when almost everything it offers is done better in 8. And I know that before World came out, there were people who assumed that 8 would seem obsolete as soon as 9 was announced.
There's little reason to go back to Vanilla Wii outside fulfilling childhood nostalgia when you could just play the newest Mario Kart. At this point in time, said game is a deluxe, which I love. But once Mario Kart 9 is out in the year 2030 during our ongoing war of evil cyborg robots, I will probably see little reason to return to deluxe as well.
And I'm glad that didn't happen. I don't need a sequel that's just a slightly refined version of 8. It's already perfect as is. And obviously the developers thought that too. And I don't know, I think it's cool that the latest entry is innovative and experimental enough that there's genuine debate about whether it's an improvement over the previous one. I think something messy and new is more interesting than something safe and stagnant. And if you think World is a swing and a miss, and still ultimately prefer 8, it's right there, still waiting for you on the same console. And you have more reason than ever to go back to it, which is more than can be said for 7. Oh damn, I only thought of 6 sins for 7. Gotta come up with another one fast. The first person driving was kinda dumb. There you go, 7 deadly sins just like the Bible warned us. But after all that, I feel like there's still one question about World I haven't fully answered yet. Because if there's another Mario Kart game on the same console as it that many think is better than World, then you really have to ask, is it truly worth it? It's funny. In the aftermath of the Switch 2 Direct, basically everything they revealed was criticised as being too expensive.
Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour will launch as a paid digital game on the same day as Nintendo Switch 2.
Oh, it costs money.
But really it was just Mario Kart World that was at the crux of the discourse. Sure, those other factors certainly contributed to it, but I do think people may have had an easier time swallowing the price of the other accessories, if at least the game prices had seemed more reasonable, because those are the things we're expected to keep shelling out for throughout the Switch 2's lifetime. And Nintendo didn't do anything to help themselves by really fumbling the PR on this situation, with their later explanation that they were doing variable pricing not being that comforting considering the 3 examples we had so far were $80 for the flagship IP, $70 for a secondary IP, and $10 for a game that nobody wanted to pay for! I guess I should also acknowledge how tariffs have affected the pricing of Nintendo accessories. I mean, it doesn't really seem to have affected the games, but I would say Even if that was a factor, I think the fact that Mario Kart World is priced higher than Donkey Kong shows they were always going to charge more for that game in particular, regardless of the current economical situation. But the thing is, being annoyed that Mario Kart is $80 and leaving it at that isn't giving the full picture, because that was not the only purchase option available. In fact, at launch, I'd reckon most people who were buying the game were not paying $80 for it. I certainly didn't. I mean, I wasn't paying $80 regardless because I was buying the game in sterling. But what I'm referring to is the Switch 2 Mario Kart World bundle. I think how good of a deal this bundle seems depends on which country you're buying it in, but in England, it was honestly pretty sound. Sorry, I'm gonna have to switch to British pricing now. I was avoiding it before because of how annoyingly specific the amounts are. Like, why is it £67 specifically? Rounded to the nearest 5, Jesus. So, the standard price of the Switch 2 here is £396, with the bundle being $430, which means you're paying £34 for Mario Kart World. To put in perspective how much of a deal this is, the digital price of the game is £67. You're literally saving 50% if you get the bundle. Not only that, but you're even paying £15 less than what 8 Deluxe is currently priced at. Sometimes Nintendo will put Switch games on sale for 33% off, and that on sale price for 8 Deluxe is how much you're paying for World at launch if you get the bundle. And when you put it like that, it seems pretty great. But of course, this deal comes with its caveats. The most obvious being that you're not really just paying for the game, as you're also committing to paying for the whole console as well. That in of itself isn't too much of an issue, since anyone who wants to play MK World was always going to have to buy the console anyway. But it does mean whichever option you pick, you're always paying a premium for something, be it the game or the console. And if you're on the fence about whether or not you want the bundle, or if you should just get the game and the console separately, you better make up your mind quickly, because Nintendo's going to stop producing these bundles come autumn. This is the real mark against it, as it's yet another example of Nintendo's artificial scarcity. Seriously, what reason is there to even stop producing this? You're putting a code in the box.
I did it!
The limited release makes it difficult to even appreciate the bundle as a good deal, and instead makes it look more like a pressure tactic that's using FOMO to get people to adopt the system early. Despite all the anger around the price, it ultimately didn't have any detrimental effect on sales, but it was never going to. This is a major Nintendo IP we're talking about, and if Nintendo have learned anything from their buddy Pokemon, it's that they don't even have to QA test their games and can still rake in millions! But what it did impact was Nintendo's public perception that this console and game reveal, which could have just been a fun celebration of the company, instead just generated a massive anger towards them. It's to the point where even I, someone who did buy the game and genuinely enjoyed it, just feels kinda sheepish and guilty about it, because I do think that the price is unreasonable. I'm not really sure how much I can recommend it because of it. I only bought the game because of the bundle. I don't think I would have bothered buying it if full price was the only option. And even now, when I know that I enjoy it, I still don't think I would have. And it's annoying how the price tag has tainted my otherwise positive feelings on the game, where I feel I can't fully defend it in these circumstances. To be honest, I'm not sure how much longer this outrage around the price will even sustain itself, as these prices just become more normalised with time. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, the latest entry in a series that previously seemed like the budget alternative to Mario Kart, is now selling at $70. We're now in a reality where that's the more affordable option. At the beginning of the Switch 2 generation, I feel like we're at a crossroads, where either every game will have this big heated debate on if it's worth the price, or people will just grow accustomed to the idea that this is how much Nintendo games cost now, and will just stop caring. And whichever path we go down, I'll always know that Mario Kart World was the one that set us down it. I hope it was worth it.